Good evening and welcome to Channels Television's continuing coverage of Nigeria's 61st independence anniversary. Today, more than 6 decades ago, Nigeria's white and green flag was hoisted officially for the first time, replacing Britain's Union Jack. It has been a journey with a lot of transitions, but one thing the country has got on its side is the number. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa with one of the largest youth populations in the world. And today is a day that reminds every citizen about the dawn of an independent nation. It throws up words like unity, togetherness, peace, and progress. Here at Channels Television, we celebrate the day with a number of frank conversations on the importance of leadership in the various sectors that make up this great country. So tonight, we'll be reflecting on this. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. With me is
I'm Ijoma Onyato. Thanks a lot, Ladi. Congratulations to all Nigerians at home and abroad. And as we know, as the largest black nation on earth, many look to Nigeria in terms of its position in the Committee of Nations. They look to the country for leadership in Africa and beyond as well, despite our checkered history on our nation, our journey to nationhood. Let's put it that way. Now, we're focusing on leadership tonight here at Channels Television, and we're going to go down memory lane just a little bit, just to give us a tip and a taste of what history was like. So we're going to start off with looking at Nigeria's leaders, democratic leaders. And I know some of you at home are already looking at the slide thinking it seems incomplete. We'll tell you why. We'll start off with Nnamdi Azikiwe, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe there, Nigeria's first president, moving on to Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who's at the end there. Tafawa Balewa, of course, being the prime minister, 1960 to 1966. Moving right along now to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Chief Awolowo, the first indigenous premier of Western Nigeria. To Alhaji Shehu Shagari, President Shagari from 1976 to, 1979 to 1983. Then we move on to President Obasanjo there. President Obasanjo, 1999 to 2007. Over now to Alhaji Umar Yar'Adua, 2007 to 2009. President Goodluck Jonathan, 2009 to 2015. And of course, at present, President Muhammadu Buhari, 2015 to date. The need to look at this is because as we know today, yes, of course, we look at what the country is like right now, but of course, to look at what leadership has been over the past few years, we look at what has happened in the past. Now, some leaders in the middle are missing, and those are the military leaders, which Ladi is going to talk about. Ladi?
Thank you, Ijoma. Yes, the military leaders are not there, but we've had quite a few of them. Major General Johnson Thomas Aguiyi-Ironsi was head of state in 1966. He was followed by General Yakubu Gowon, who took the nation through the Civil War and thereafter. And he was in turn followed by General Murtala Muhammad, who ruled from 1975 in July to 1976 February, when he was assassinated, before then General Olusegun Obasanjo, who went on to become president and whose picture is on that list, took over and handed over to President Shehu Shagari. But President Shehu Shagari was removed by someone whose picture is on that list, then as a military ruler, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. He in turn was removed by General Ibrahim Babangida, who left office and was replaced by General Sani Abacha. General Sani Abacha was one of Nigeria's leaders who died in office, and he in turn was replaced by General Abdul Salami Abubakar, who midwifed the current democracy and handed over to one of his predecessors, General Olusegun Obasanjo. So, there you have the complete list, 1960 to date. We, of course, talk about one of those people who was military and became civilian. There are, in fact, two of them. One of them is General Olusegun Obasanjo. The other is General Muhammadu Buhari, who spoke to the country this morning in his capacity as the current democratically elected president of the country.
In the face of challenges confronting the country, President Muhammadu Buhari used the occasion of the nation's 61st independence anniversary to rally Nigerians to have a positive outlook and determination to make Nigeria a peaceful and prosperous nation.
Through words or action.
In the broadcast, he tries to highlight some of the achievements of his administration in infrastructure development while directing the Ministry of Agriculture to address the looming food crisis in the country.
As our food production capacity has increased, food prices have been going up due to artificial shortages created by middlemen who have been buying and holding these essential commodities for profiteering. To address this, I am hereby directing the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to rehabilitate the National Food Reserve Agency and also work with security agencies, the Nigerian Commodity Exchange, and the National Assembly to find a lasting solution to these disruptive and unpatriotic hoarding activities.
This week, the National Assembly asked the president to take steps to address the security situation in the country, especially the activities of bandits. But President Buhari is concerned about the high-profile Nigerians behind some secessionists.
We shall continue to work on dialogue-based solutions to address legitimate grievances, but we remain ready to take decisive actions against secessionist agitators and their sponsors who threaten our national security. The recent arrests of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Adeyemo and the ongoing investigations being conducted have revealed certain high-profile financiers behind these individuals. We are vigorously pursuing these financiers, including one identified as a serving member of the National Assembly.
Expressing his disappointment on the global distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine, President Buhari unveils plans to begin local production of vaccines in Nigeria.
As we wish to source vaccine for our immediate needs, we shall invest more to support our pharmaceutical and research agencies to come up with ideas for locally developed vaccines. Accordingly, I have directed the Ministries of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Health, Education, Science and Technology to work with Nigerian and international pharmaceutical companies and research organizations to enhance Nigeria's domestic pharmaceutical capacity.
The president also explains the conditions for lifting the ban on the microblogging site Twitter.
Following the suspension of Twitter operations, Twitter Incorporated reached out to the federal government of Nigeria to resolve the impasse. Following the extensive engagements, the issues are being addressed, and I have directed that the suspension be lifted, but only if the conditions are met to allow our citizens continue to use the platform.
President Buhari remains confident that his administration's target of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years is achievable, in spite of the high inflation rate and rising unemployment figure.
Welcome back. The president spoke about a lot of things. Some I've already seen on social media. I've described this as one of the longest speeches President Buhari has given. 40 minutes.
36? About 36.
36, 37 minutes,
Yeah,
101 paragraphs.
That's it.
And in that speech, he talked about quite a number of things that came up during the last 6 years plus of his administration. Of course, insecurity, the deployment of personnel. These are some of the things he talked about. The fact that a serving member of the National Assembly has been found to be a financier of terrorist activity was also a major point in his speech. The ban on Twitter was raised, but with 5 conditions which need to be fulfilled. The Petroleum Industry Act amendment process, and then, of course, the fight against COVID-19.
Indeed, he talked about that as well. And he looked at inclusive responsibility as well, saying that Nigeria does not start and end with the federal government. And that kind of ties into our theme today, looking at leadership across all levels of government and agencies as well. The establishment of specialized courts is also something that featured in his speech as well. We'll talk about that. And the bonding of Nigeria, meaning national unity and youth inclusion as well, inclusion in government and inclusion in public life as well, Ladi.
That's it. Of course, the president spoke about quite a number of things. As Ijoma pointed out, we'll be taking a look at some of those things, particularly as they relate to leadership. But we'll take a break first before we come back for the first of 2 segments of Frank Conversation. So please stay on with us.
Happy Independence Anniversary from Channels Television.
A warm welcome back to our program this evening. As promised, we're going to the first of 2 segments of frank discussion. The first, let me start, of course, from the studio here, where we're being joined by Pastor Itua Ighodalo. Pastor Ighodalo is, of course, very well known.
Senior pastor, Trinity House, of course.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
In our Abuja studios, we have Professor Ernest Ojukwu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Professor Ojukwu, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, we'll start the discussion from taking a look back at our recruitment process of leadership. Because when people talk about leaders, it's usually from a pipeline. So let me start with you, Pastor Ighodalo. You have spent a great deal of time with young people trying to become leaders. What have you found to be some of the perhaps missing links in the process that requires people like you to come in?
What has really been a bit of a deficit in Nigeria is a lack of national ethos, a lack of national feeling, a lack of national culture. If you go to most countries of the world, you would find that there is a dominant culture, there is a dominant ethos. If you go to Germany, you'll find the Germans efficient, timely, strong machines. America, capitalists, but very, very disciplined people who try to work to some rule. British, they have their own ethos, and so on and so forth. But in Nigeria, we have not been able to wield together a national ethos and a set of principles under which we bring up our children. So we have a very laissez-faire environment where anybody just picks up their child and brings them up in a certain way, and the survival instinct is overwhelming. People just want to survive, and they do anything to survive and to eke a living. So in my part of the country, Edo State, you would even allow your daughter to go to Europe and do prostitution so that she can bring money back home. Some people send their children to go and be a driver, go and be a mechanic, go and herd food, go and do anything, just bring money back home. And when you do things like that, there's no basis on which you can moralize or tell the child what is right or what is wrong. Even these days, they encourage children, go and cheat in the exam. Just cheat, just pass, just get it. And today, nobody believes that if you don't know somebody, you cannot get anything done. As a pastor, I get requests every day. I want a job, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job. Who do you know? They arrest you at the police post. Pastor, they've arrested me. Please, if you don't know somebody, that's it. So you don't know the law, you don't know the principle, you don't know the rule of law, you don't know what your rights are as a citizen, anything can happen to you in Nigeria. So we're in a bit of a jungle, unfortunately. And until we get that thought from the top right, driving down to the very bottom, we'll continue to just, everybody will do as they want. They said in the Bible there was a time when Israel had no king, and everybody did whatever they wanted. That's what we are in Nigeria.
Okay.
And it's tough to put it together.
Speaking of the thoughts from the top, as you've put it, you heard the president's address today. He did talk about youth inclusion in government. Let me just start by asking you what you made of his address. Listening to that as one who works with young people, did you feel 61 years after it's something that gave you hope or courage?
Well, in fairness to the president, this is probably the longest speech he's ever had. And I think this one has been well written and sort of well documented. But there's nothing new. We've been on this path since 1960. Presidents say the same thing. There's no energy, there's no drive, there's nothing to convince me listening that these things are going to happen. It's another conversation. I do hope that some of those things would happen. But talking about youth inclusion, yes. I mean, well, starting off, Nigeria was run by youth, to be honest, since 1966. Gowon was 32 or 31. He was a bachelor when he became head of state. Ironsi was 42 or 45, and so on and so forth. Even Awolowo was about 50-something, and Tafawa Balewa was about 49. So we've had largely a youth-minded government. What we didn't have was informed, educated, energized, exposed, and focused visionary leadership. We've really, really not had that in Nigeria, and that is our problem. So I do hope that with time and with the passage of democracy and with the strengthening of democracy, we will be able to get the cream at the top, because a lot of the people who started in 60, 66, they've not left. It's the same names since I've been born. Buhari, the same name. Obasanjo, the same name. Fajuyi, the same name. Adebayo, the same name. Gowon, the same name. Gowon became head of state when I was 5 years old. And they're still around and so on and so forth. So we've not really had any transition in leadership. And now that we seem to be beginning to transit, the culture is totally wrong.
Not there. Let me go to Abuja Studios, where Professor Ernest Ojukwu is. Prof, one of the things that happened more recently, feeding off what Pastor Ighodalo just talked about, is that there is a not too young to run act now. And President Buhari is very proud of the fact that he signed that into law, providing a legal framework for youth participation, for the participation of young leaders in the contest for leadership. You're a lawyer, and I'm sure you've seen that bill, that act. Does it provide some of the missing gaps that Pastor talked about and that others may have identified as well?
Not at all. The law does not provide anything new. Doesn't provide anything new at all. At best, what the law has done is to bring to the fore the importance of addressing the issue of youth participation. Actually, an attempt to energize our constitutional provisions relating to age participation in politics. But as a matter of fact, it cannot solve the problem by legal instruments in any way.
Now, you mentioned the issue of, by the way, we invited the Minister of Youth and Sports to join us in this discussion, Mr. Sunday Dari, but he declined to join this discussion. I mentioned that because when you talk about the age not being the key point, Pastor Ighodalo pointed out that a lot of our leaders were already young people, so it's not really about the age as well. But what I really was interested in was that, did you think that that provided a framework of some kind of leadership pipeline to provide for younger elements to, in an organized fashion, participate in the leadership process? That was the question.
Yeah, it has an opportunity. It creates an opportunity. An opportunity cannot be translated except action is taken behind the opportunity. It creates an opportunity which is now left for us to fill up. By just having the law, that opportunity will still not arise. Look at the party politics, for example, the internal arrangements of parties. That is one of the areas you look at to see whether that law will help. If the system in each of the parties still shuts out the youth in practical forms, the law will still not be helpful at all. So it surely creates an opportunity. It's a good law. It's a good policy statement. It's supposed to energize us to now begin to address the issues. But it requires real action, practical action by actors, especially the leaders. Because in this type of governance structure we have, no matter how much you demand of the followership, the leadership has a greater responsibility and obligation to recreate the system and make it work well.
All right, thank you. Let me now bring in from our Cairo studio Professor Munzali Jibrin. Professor Jibrin, thank you for joining us on the show, and I'm sure that you've been listening to this conversation quite keenly. Before I ask you to comment on some of what we've heard today, just tell us what your view is of the country at 61, and then we'll delve into our thoughts on leadership. Professor Jibrin? Okay, I think he can't quite hear us, but let me come back to you, Pastor Ighodalo. I know you've talked about the fact that everything seems to be going the way it is, for want of a better way of putting it. Virtually every section of this country, every area claims to be marginalized in some way or the other. Some sections feel they haven't received justice. What would you say, what would be your advice as one who everyone comes to, the young people, old people, the elderly people? What should be the rhetoric? And I'm asking this question because when you hear others say, we cannot continue this way, some people interpret that to mean you do not want us to stay together any longer. What would be your view?
I think Nigeria is a great country. I tell anybody who bothers to listen to me that I think Nigeria is one of the greatest countries in the world in terms of the blessings, the natural blessings that it has. Strong people, a lot of people, strong resource, capacity, and everything. What we really have not done is to have a very inclusive governance of our people. And it is the military interruption in our governance process that has really caused this thing, plus the British influence before they left us in 1960. They ran a roadmap for Nigeria. They planned Nigeria to end up the way it is for their own benefit. And they can quote me and they can challenge me. And their records to show that this is what they planned, okay? And then the military boys came in and then interrupted this, okay? But I think what we need to do now, if we're honest to ourselves, is to sit around the table. Everybody has to sit around the table. And we have to discuss and we have to converse. Why some people are afraid to make this happen, I don't know. But we have to sit around the table and everybody's opinion has to be heard and everybody's conversation has to be taken into consideration. Okay,
Professor Jibrin, let me come back to you now. Apologies for that earlier. Mr. Ighodalo has said we all need to sit around the table. Another table, what would be your assessment?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, so my question to you is we're looking at thoughts on leadership, looking at Nigeria at 61, leadership at all levels now. If you were to look at the crystal ball, looking back and now looking forward, what would be your thought in terms of how we should move forward? Should it be another sitting around the table again, or where have we got it wrong?
Okay, well, I believe we've had varied leadership styles within these 61 years. Most of them not good enough for the country. And moving forward, I believe we need visionary leadership, transparent leadership, and purposeful leadership. Because very rarely have these qualities been combined in one leader. And a lot of deficiencies have manifested themselves in previous leaders. And I think, but we've been improving and we've been learning. Yes, so I believe that moving forward, we're going to get better and better.
But, Prof, so many people have talked about all the things you talked about, visionary leadership, committed, looking forward, and all of that. But it's one thing to say it, is another thing. You yourself just admitted that it appears as if those qualities, we haven't quite gotten them in one leader yet, and that's 60 years down the line. Is it the recruitment process that is wrong, or that is deficient, or or is it the fact that our country is too complicated or too big to produce that kind of leaders, given the kind of process that we throw up anytime we want such leaders?
I think we've had very good leaders at some stages, but sometimes they didn't last long enough. I believe that General Murtala Mohammed, who was a military leader, encompassed some of the qualities that we would love to have in a Nigerian leader. Unfortunately, of course, the system did not tolerate him, so he was cut down in his prime after only 6 months. We've had good leaders, but they didn't have all the qualities that we mentioned combined in them. But you see, the leadership deficiency is also complemented by followership deficiency. Because I think we, as a people, we've been too subservient to our leaders, too unwilling to hold them to account, and too sycophantic. So I believe that the electorate, the citizens, ought to rise and demand a certain level of service and leadership from their leaders, and it is only that will guarantee that we have improved leadership in future. It won't come on its own, because even in the advanced polities and economies, it is because there is so much demand for accountability that leaders can't get away with non-performance. If you look at we're only looking at the presidency, but look below the presidency. Look at the states, for example. Look at local governments. A lot of the governors grew up during the military era, and their conception of leadership is that which says, I will take decisions in great secrecy with minimum consultation, and I will order implementation immediately. And anybody who opposes me is marked as an enemy and will be dealt with as such. And this is wrong. This is a democratic regime. I don't want to mention any names, but if you look around, you will find this trait in many of our governors. They behave as if they are dictators or military commanders who cannot be challenged. And also, you see, the Constitution provides for accountability of the governors to the state houses of assembly. But what do we have? We have the governors pocketing the state houses of assembly, and there is no opposition there, there is no demand for accountability. So as long as we have this arrangement, leaders will get away with murder, literally. Yes, so I think the followership has to take some of the responsibility for leadership failure as well.
Okay, Professor Juku, let me quickly come to you now. I mean, we've been looking at leadership for the last 61 years. Well, a lot of lawyers that I've spoken to have said that the next 2 years are critical and there should be some sort of impactful, multi-stakeholder government, coming from all sectors of the economy to satisfy all the various groups that are agitating. In your view, will this be the solution, now trying to look for a more inclusion at this time with 2 years to go to 2023? Just quickly now.
Yeah, of course, the more include divergent sectors of any population, the better for fairness, the principles of fairness and equity. But that does not on its own cure leadership deficiencies. Leadership deficiencies are quite different from implementing actions of state. Equity is where you address the implementation of actions of state. But you need to have leadership that can galvanize the system to play that equity, play inclusiveness, and so on and so forth. So just changing that platform and including divergent views will not solve the problem in any way.
I want to stay with you, Professor Ojukwu, for a second in order to ask you about the pipeline. I've been mentioning that pipeline for quite a bit in this conversation, which is how we produce these leaders. Because from everything that has been said so far by yourself, Professor Jibrin, and Pastor Ighodalo here, we have talked about the fact that, yes, the leaders have been deficient in one way or the other. But in order to get one who isn't quite so deficient, or those who are not quite so deficient, I've been told that you need a pipeline from which you can choose. How do you produce that pipeline?
There's no potential for the pipeline in the country. There's no potential whatsoever. If you listen to the pastor, there's no even though we have national core values, which was enacted and signed into a policy statement by President Buhari about a year or two ago. We have always had some cultural values from our communities, but there's a total breakdown of values in the country. And so there's no way you can have a total breakdown of values and you'll be able to lay down any pipeline for leadership qualities that the professor just talked about. The system is not on its own the problem, even as weak as it is. It is the human beings that operate the system that is a problem. And the human beings must operate on an acceptable value system. And the human beings here, called Nigerian, does not have that general moral value that you can use to lay down a pipeline that can produce the best quality. So we are going to depend on luck. To get the quality leadership that the professor talked about would be purely accidental.
Mr. Ighodalo, let me come back to you, Pastor Ighodalo, I beg your pardon. Let me come back to you about what Ladi is talking about, this pipeline. Anytime we talk about youth inclusiveness in government, it's not as if we're going to pluck somebody and put them there. With about 10 million children out of school, and those who even make it to school, you find in some areas, security crisis will not allow them to even stay in there. What do you think should be, beyond the lip service of youth inclusiveness, what do you think should be the solution to getting the right people into that pipeline and moving them all the way up?
Well, until you have a leader that thinks above the fray and thinks nationally and thinks the way you are talking about having a pipeline, you will not have that pipeline, okay? Because what happened in Nigeria is that a lot of people who should be in the pipe were discouraged or discouraged themselves or didn't get into that pipe. And therefore, the pipe now is a bit locked out, and they're out of the pipe, and you cannot create that pipeline. Anywhere else in the world, it would have created itself naturally. Ironically, one of the leaders in this country who created a pipeline is Bola Tinubu, because you can see that Lagos has told a story from Bola Tinubu to Fashola to Ambode, now to Sanwo-Olu, a gentle pipeline. And after Sanwo-Olu, I can tell you that there's 3, 4, 5 people who are positioned to go through that pipeline.
But there are some that will not be happy with that, the pipeline arrangement that you're speaking about now, even though you've said it is positive.
It is a pipeline. It's a definite pipeline. Bola Tinubu, you can say anything you want about him. He looked for leaders, and he didn't need to know them. He didn't know Shibadu before he made him Attorney General. He looked for them, and he tried to, at least in some areas, find some form of competence. We have not done that at the national level. National level, we've just thought about sharing cake. Where you come from, you share your cake, you share your cake, you share your cake, you go away. Nobody. Nigeria is an orphan. Nobody's thinking of Nigeria at this point in time.
Let me stop you there and ask this.
Yeah.
At what the thing you just said, you said nobody's thinking Nigeria. Nobody. The flip side of that question is, don't we have to define who a Nigerian is for us to be able? There are people who say that the way that you have Britons and Americans and so on, you don't have Nigerians like that.
Yes, because nobody at the top who had the responsibility of defining for us what Nigeria should be ever did it. Okay? Before Awolowo and Saudana and Zik had time to sit down and define Nigeria, they were thrown out of the scene completely. Okay? They came in as tribal warlords, sat around the table, and they didn't have a time enough to define. And when the military boys came, they didn't even think about it. They just took up a responsibility. A war came after, and they fought the war. Gowon didn't even have time to settle down after the war to start to define. And I'm not even sure he thought exactly that way. And before Murtala Mohammed came, then Obasanjo came, handed over to Shagari. Buhari came, threw Shagari out. We've not had time to sit and think as a nation. And we have not been fortunate enough to have somebody at the helm of affairs that was really prepared for leadership. A lot of them were accidental leaders, went through no training, went through no tutorship, went through no education or learning, when they were not even tested. You know, Gowon was a lieutenant colonel. He had not really led anything before. How is he going to lead 150 million people? In all due respect to him. And he turned out to be one of the better or the best ones that we had, and so on and so forth. How does somebody move from being a supervisor and assistant in an office and suddenly becomes the managing director? It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. There's a process of training. You know, Segun Agbaje is just retired as MD of Guarantee Trust. He started as a banking officer. He went through training, 25 years, became MD, and handed over to somebody. That is the natural process of training. But here in Nigeria, you don't have any such process. People are plucked out of different places, put into the thing, and then they become something. They're not thinking, they're not reasoning, they're not planning, they have no vision, they don't care. They've been sent there, bring the resource to our family, or bring it to our tribe, and they obey it to the letter. And they don't care what happens to Nigeria, and everybody tends to think that Nigeria will solve its own problem by itself. Until we begin a search and we speak to us. I was speaking to some people in my home before I left. I said, the problem with Nigeria is that we're not ready. People are not ready. When you say, come out and do this, they say, let me sort out my house, let me sort out my wife. We are not ready until people are really ready and they're pushed to the wall. And they start asking questions that what is going on here? Nothing will happen. And then the people have kept a lot of people who should speak ignorant, unknowledgeable, dragging cattle all over the place. A Mark Zuckerberg potential. He's pulling cattle from Sokoto to Lagos. How is that going to happen? 10 million people out of school. How is it going to happen? When you should have a government that's focusing on educating the people, enlightening them, bringing them out of poverty, upskilling them, and making sure that they can run their own businesses and contribute to national ethos. They don't care. And this is where we are. And until Nigerians, we all rise up, you know. There is a picture that I saw. When the people rise up, the game is up. Until people rise up and people like myself are able to speak to people, educate them, change their thinking, transform their minds, it's just going to continue like this. Because the level of ignorance is abysmal. And as long as that is in action, nothing is going to happen. The first thing Lee Kuan Yew did was to educate his people. But we don't even care about education. We say education is not important. How are you going to survive in 2021 without education? Talk to me.
Pastor
Maybe
Godalo,
we should. If we leave, if we leave Pastor Godalo.
Talk to me.
I almost got carried away.
I was worried. I was about to say, let us go back to Professor Jibrin, because he's now talking about education and
Yes.
ignorance and how that can actually put a people down.
Then, with
Yeah.
the leadership question.
Yeah, so with the leadership question, Professor Jibrin, what's your take on it? Look, let me even go back to July, where there was the Global Economic Summit, the Global Education Summit, I beg your pardon, the president was there, and all countries there were making their pledges for education. Some would say 20%, some would say 10%, for instance. And then you have the percentage of our budget, less than 6%, budgeted towards education. Is that the look of a nation that needs to take education as seriously as it should, Prof? Let me just start with you. Professor Jibrin, go ahead. Okay, I don't think he can hear us any longer. Okay, let me come back to you, Professor Ojukwu. The question I had put to Professor Jibrin was on education and the percentage, etc. But what I'll put to you, being a lawyer, Mr. Godalo was talking about us being ready as a people. Is the judiciary ready in terms of its leadership to take Nigeria where it ought to go? Looking at the structure and judicial reforms, which is mostly talked about over the years. What's your take before we go back to Professor Jibrin?
Okay, yeah, sure. The judiciary is another sector of the system, and it cannot be better than the rest of the system unless the system is good enough. The judiciary has tried over the past few 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to elevate itself to some best practices, including reforms in access to justice. But there's one major part of it that has not been tackled properly, and that's in the appointment of the personnel. A greater problem emanating from the judiciary is from the personnel, from the level of personnel. There's a problem with the appointment of personnel, which has dented the spirit of independence of the judiciary. The appointment of judges is still mostly secret. The public has not been allowed to have a voice. The system has not been allowed to have a voice in the caliber of personnel that is recruited. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Professor Ojukwu. I think perhaps you got Ijeoma's question a bit wrong. Ijeoma was talking about education and the fact that for us to build a pipeline of leaders, Pastor Godalo has pointed out that they need to be educated. But with us devoting only 6% as opposed to other countries that devote 20, 22% or even more than that in some cases to education, we might have a bit of a problem. The judiciary that you were talking about just a second ago would also be affected by that. But more broadly speaking, in terms of general education, we have 10 plus million children, mostly, of course, in northern Nigeria, out of school, although that number may be more now with what is happening in other parts of the country. But the fact remains that we don't seem to be putting enough in education. Is there a link, do you think, between that and our inability, if indeed there is an inability, to produce this leadership pipeline?
Of course, there's a great link between education and leadership and governance. It's a strong link. We have, a strong population of educated persons in the country, but also the quality of education matters. The orientation the population has been exposed to is important. The culture and the values. So no matter how much educated you are, if you still don't have those values that are based on honesty, sincerity, decency, and so on and so forth, no matter how much educated you are, you still have a problem with leadership. You can acquire all the education in the world and still will not be able to lead a population. And we have seen it in many cases. There are too many educated governors in the country. There are too many educated House of Assembly members. There are too many educated senators. There are too many educated House of Rep members. But that doesn't change the quality of leadership. Education is important for leadership, but leadership on its own is not based on just going to school. And so it will help, but it does, as long as you have lost the value, the community values that you need for governance, no matter how many educated people we have in the system, it still not matter. We have examples from unions. There's leadership problem among university law teachers. There's crisis in the Nigerian Labour Congress. There's crisis in Nigerian Medical Association. There's crisis in elections at the Nigerian Bar Station. All these people are all educated, very, very educated. But there's still a problem in the leadership, in the pipeline thing, in all those professional associations. So just the leadership, the education on its own does not account for good governance in any way, in the form we're talking about.
Okay, Professor Jibrin, let me come to you now. Apologies again, you couldn't hear us earlier, but I believe you did hear the question that I put to you about education and just what you feel about its state and where we are right now, 61 years later. If you can hear me, Professor Jibrin. Fantastic. So could you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
I've followed the discussion. It is true that we have educated people at all the levels of leadership, but there is still poor leadership. You know, we have cases of professors who have been chief executives of parastatals being caught red-handed, engaging in all the malpractices and corruption that other people who are less educated have been caught committing. So I don't think that the level of education has any correlation with leadership. I believe that the way we recruit our leaders and the total lack of accountability in the system are responsible for poor leadership. Education is good, but it has to be part of a package. In some jurisdictions, morality and service orientation are inculcated in the citizens through the educational system. But children are very perceptive. If you teach them something and the society does something else, they see the difference and they see the contradiction, and therefore they will not implement what you teach them in school. So in Nigeria, if you teach a Nigerian child to be honest, and he finds that even his teacher is not honest, his parents are not honest with one another or with the children, and gradually he finds out that the society runs on dishonesty, there's no way you can expect him to be honest. So education has to be part of a package. That is to say, you teach them good morals and you practice good morals outside the school. And more importantly, you put in place sanctions to make sure that anybody who misbehaves is promptly dealt with by the system. But one of the reasons why there is so much poor leadership is, as I mentioned before, lack of accountability, and also the possibility that you'll get away with anything. So people commit all sorts of crimes or allow themselves to fail as leaders because there are no consequences. So you see, you can't blame the educational system, and putting more money in it will not solve the problem. Yes, I know we need more money in education, but for this particular problem, it's not a question of money.
So what is it?
Thank you.
What is it a question of?
Pastor Godalo,
actually?
you're shaking your head vigorously. It's not a question of money. What do you think?
How do you educate people? It costs money to build a classroom. Even if you are going to educate them with a phone and a tablet, you have to spend money. You have to pay a teacher. You have to develop a curriculum. You have to put in money in education.
So the narrative that we should move from funding education to investing in education is something that you agree with, not just throwing money at it, but actually building the institutions that will make it thrive?
It's critical. You have to invest in education. If you do everything that a child knows, a child learned either through education or through instruction or through information or through looking and observing. Everything is education. It's not formal classroom alone that's education, but we have to invest in education. We have to make sure, first of all, that everybody is knowledgeable and they know their rights and they can challenge something that is not going according to what they think. If you are not educated, how are you going to challenge anything? You can't challenge anything. If you're an area boy, you don't know what your rights are because you haven't been to school, you can't challenge anything. I am on this platform because I'm educated. So is Professor. You should have gone to the village and picked up anybody and put them on this platform because you want to hear my ideas, because I've been exposed, okay? What we had in Nigeria are leaders that were simply not exposed. They were not themselves educated appropriately, and therefore they couldn't pass the education down the line to others. I am here because my mother was educated, my father was educated, and they educated me, and they sent me to schools that gave me certain values, okay? If you don't send people to schools that give them values and educate them, how are they going to speak? How are they going to reason?
But Pastor Godalo, let me ask you, when COVID-19 hit, Nigeria was praised for its handling. The leadership was praised for coming together through the ranks, the local governments, state, federal, and really fought that pandemic to what we have where we are today. And lots of people said, if we could do that for COVID, why can't this trickle down to other sectors of the economy? This is still the same set of leaders that achieved that. So can you really say what you're saying?
So tell me, who was responsible for the COVID initiative? Which one?
You tell me.
Oh, you tell me. The people who were responsible for the COVID initiative were competent people. They were competent people in that particular area. The gentleman who headed the NCDC is a competent person. The guy who headed COVID in Lagos State, Professor Akin Abayomi, was my senior in primary school, secondary school. He's a competent person, okay? They knew what to do. Jide Idris, that handled Ebola in Lagos State 6 or 7 years ago, is a competent person. We were fortunate at this time to have a set of competent people who were there. Mind you, in some states, they didn't handle this thing well. I know what Godwin Obaseki did in Edo State to capture COVID. He's a competent person. But there's some states today who still think that there's no COVID in Nigeria. Think about it. But we're lucky, fortunate, that at the federal and critical states like Lagos State, they were competent people. Abayomi didn't sleep for almost 3 months, all over the place, running here and there, supported by a competent or a capable and exposed governor. But the other places, some people are still walking up and down. And even then, we haven't handled COVID well. You go around the streets, even in Lagos, in the market, nobody is masking up. We're just fortunate.
Why you hear COVID has gone?
We're just fortunate in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I don't know what Nigeria did or Africa did. We're fortunate. It's not even a measure of our competence. Because how many testing did we do? How many vaccines have we done? How many masks? How many people are walking everywhere? They don't even believe that there's COVID. Go to any market in Nigeria today, you will not find, if they put it under the chin, and there will be, it's 1 out of 10 under the chin.
Even if that many.
I will not even say that it was even our real competence that saved us from. And then again, we don't even know how many people died. At that time in Kano, people were dying almost every week.
But the,
They were
but the
saying
argument
that,
there
they say it
was
wasn't
that
COVID.
there was a glimmer of hope somewhere that the leaders could come together and
For that
achieve that
purpose.
for that purpose.
Maybe
And that
That's
therefore
the
they can
argument.
come together for a lot of
Exactly.
Maybe crisis. We came together and fought a civil war and came out of it. How many countries have done that? Maybe Nigerians can react to crisis. Maybe there's something in us that makes us able to react to crisis. But a lot of the time, we don't plan ahead. We don't look into the future. We're crisis managers. We're not people who look ahead. And I'm glad that at least COVID, we could come together.
Professor Ojukwu, would you say that we are crisis managers? Is that
I was going to ask you that. You have about a minute. We have to go. We have to go to another studio, take another discussion briefly. But Professor Ojukwu, are we crisis managers? Are we very good crisis managers?
Surely not. We're just lucky people. We're just lucky people on
Not
earth.
good crisis managers, just
Lucky
good crisis managers.
Okay.
We must explain the difference between having a leader that's educated, very well educated, and having a leader that's competent. They're not the same thing. We must also explain the importance of educating everybody, almost everybody, to support good governance. But that does not provide good governance, that you have educated everybody. We must pigeonhole the discussion to be able to understand exactly where our weaknesses are from. The fact that you have educated everybody, which is important, to stop, for example, this crisis in security, the crisis in managing your lives, does not mean that you will have a good leader that can help you galvanize all that ability to forge ahead as a country, civilized country. So we need competence, but the process does not allow any competence. The people who vote for us don't allow any competence because there's a cultural problem. It's a value problem. And until we get a leader who will now take it upon himself to begin that reorientation. We can't get it from the bottom. It must be from the top. The choice is ours. Surely we can't manage any crisis well. We just get lucky. As the pastor said, when I read about the praising of Nigeria with the management of COVID, I was laughing because I'm a COVID ambassador here, and I know that we didn't manage anything at all. We're just lucky that we're not dying.
Okay, Prof. I know that argument can go on. A lot of people would see it a little bit differently, but don't go away. I know you still have a lot of thoughts to share with us. Same for Professor Jibrin and as well for you, Pastor Godalo. Thank you so far, but you're going to stay with us. Now, we can't talk about young people in their absence. So we do have, it's a teeming young people. We're going to listen to their views and voices. For that, we'll turn it over to our political correspondent, Sheung Okimbaloye. He sat down with them. Let's hear their voices. Let's hear their views on Nigeria at 61. And then we'll come back here on the other side and continue this discussion. Please stay with us.
Hello, Nigeria. Happy Independence Day. It is Nigeria's 64th Independence Day anniversary, and that is more than 6 decades since the Nigeria's white and green flag was hoisted officially for the first time, replacing the Britain's Union Jack. It has been a journey with a lot of transitions, but one thing the country has got on its side is a number. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa with one of the largest youth populations in the world, with people aged 60 years and older representing a small part of population and ironically representing the ruling class. Leadership deficit is considered one of the factors preventing Nigeria from achieving sustainable economic growth and development as well as attaining its full potential. Now, where do the young ones belong in the political scheme of things? In April 2018, Nigeria's National Assembly resolved to transmit the Not Too Young to Run bill to the president. The bill seeking to reduce age qualification for political offices was signed into law in May 2018 by President Muhammadu Buhari. The president, on a lighter note on that day, noted asking youths who might be eyeing his seats to postpone their campaigns till after the 2019 presidential election.
Please,
can I ask you to postpone your campaign till after 2019 election?
Pastor Tunde Bakari, the General Overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, blames youths in Nigeria for problems in the country. He also says that youth will be instrumental to helping the nation out of its current state.
Nigeria was brought to its current state not necessarily by gerontocrats, but by mostly young Nigerians, some of whom had been actively involved in governance from their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and some who are still relevant even now. It is why I say that the youth, in a sense, brought us here. However, as optimistic as I can be, I'm of the considered opinion that youth will also take us out of the present predicament.
Perhaps the saying that youth are the leaders of tomorrow is not applicable in Nigeria, where 64% of Nigeria's approximately 200 million population have been forced to watch political events from the sideline. And that is why we bring that conversation to bear tonight. And that conversation where the youths would have their say begins now. Nigeria, let's get started with the conversation. I have a panel made up of young, vibrant Nigerians. I have joining me the CEO of Suji Moto, a real estate entrepreneur, Suji Bomi Ogundele. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
And followed by a member of the PDP, a lawyer, Anthony Heilebo. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Sharon, for having me.
A very prominent Nigerian actor, Kate Henshaw. Thank you so much, Kate, for coming tonight.
Thanks, Joe. Hello, everyone.
Hamza Lawal is a CSO person, a civil society person, the founder of Follow the Money. Thank you so much, Hamza, for coming.
Thank you, Sharon.
Moremi Ojudu, very popular Nigerian activist, a member of the APC too. Thank you so much, Moremi, for coming.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
And the sponsor of the Not Too Young to Run bill, a former member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tony Ngulu. Thank you so much, Honorable, for coming.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
Let's get started. I think we should start from Mr. Sujimoto, Mr. Ogundele. The conversation will begin from, we've laid the premise on Nigeria and the young people, the question of leadership. Where did we get it wrong?
Thank you very much, Sharon. For us to answer this question, we have to go back to not even before 1960 to 1958. From 1958 till date, Nigeria has earned over $600 billion in oil revenue. Between 1999 and today, Nigeria has borrowed over $25 billion. A capital injection of approximately 300 trillion naira. Do we look like 300 trillion naira has passed through us? Does our infrastructure, does our healthcare, and many other things, does it look like 300 trillion naira has passed through us? We must make those conscious decisions and address the issues of the past so that we can have a future tomorrow. If we refuse to do that, we will continue suffering these dividends of incompetence, and I strongly believe that the cost of leadership must not be that difficult.
Thank you. Anthony?
Where did we get it wrong? Well, I think this question is a question that, I mean, for a lot of years, we've asked ourselves these questions. Did we get it wrong with our leadership? Did we also get it wrong with our followership? I think we got it wrong by just focusing on one area, which is the leadership. I think getting it wrong started from both parties not recognizing the role they need to play in the future Nigeria they needed to see. And we've forgotten that even at the very basic ward level, unit level of the country, there is leadership, there is followership. And we need to identify these particular niches of our specter of growth or country and say, we all need to take responsibility, both as leaders and as followers. We all have a place where we all got it wrong. And agreeing to that is the first step to fixing whatever problems we have as a country today.
We are in this place today to look at where we get it wrong and how we can solve it. Because I believe that some of the solutions of the Nigeria's problem is in this room. Kate, what do you feel?
We got it wrong when we stopped upholding the office of the citizen, which is the highest office in the land, where we took our eyes off the ball and we let things slide, for lack of a better word, where we stopped holding people accountable, including ourselves, stopped voting in the right people who care, who truly care about our human resources, our human capital, and the potential of this great country. That is where we got it wrong.
Hamza, do you agree?
Oh, yes, I do agree. We got it wrong because people in power became selfish. We stopped investing in people, and we thought that without investment, Nigeria could move forward. Our biggest asset are people. We got it wrong because everyone has put themselves first before Nigeria.
That's deep. Moremi?
I'll go with what Hamzat has just said. We stopped investing in people. We always put ourselves first. And unfortunately, our leaders have taken that path of them first before others. And unfortunately, that has really put us in a very bad light. And our value system, it became value system, greed, and a situation where we just lack focus.
Honorable Nwulu, you moved the motion, you sponsored the Not Too Young to Run bill. What was on your mind was where we got a wrong part of what was in your mind?
Well, I wouldn't say that was entirely what was in my mind, but to also address the inequality. Because for me, I believe that if you could vote, then you should also be voted for. It doesn't actually mean that probably at 18, you should go to the Senate, or at 20, you should go to the Senate. But if you live in a community where at 20, you're the only one qualified to go to the Senate, then by all means, you should go to the Senate. You know, I think it's a different thing from the leadership failures that we've been having. It's not like we have dearth of leaders, but several other people that have refused to also join to see what they can do to correct those seeming anomaly that we've seen in the society.
So at some point, we always say politics is dirty. That is a very popular language. And at what point did we discover that politics is dirty? Without politics, leadership, recruitment is almost impossible. So is our politics dirty? Are the young people responsible? Because some of you guys are also culpable, because some of you have run away from politics, isn't it?
We had this conversation. We had this conversation just before coming here. And Anthony here was on my case, and on the case of Hamza, and on the case of Suji over there. I did run for office. I did try. And he said to me, it's not enough. But I believe that because, indeed, a lot of good people have run away because of the terminology dirty politics. They do not want to get involved. And that is so wrong in of itself, because we need to be involved. You can't effect any change from the outside. It's totally impossible. You have to get in there and just try to clean it up. Yes, it is dirty. We all know that. But we need people to go in there.
Is it dirty, really?
It's dirty.
Is it dirty, really?
I want to interject on that. Politics is not dirty. It's our mindset. And why I say it's our mindset is because in 1999, when we returned back, you know, we saw a whole lot of the people championing the democracy then. Majority of them were people of questionable character. You know, because the professionals and the rest of them stayed away, thinking that at some point, probably the military will come back again. So it wasn't going to last, with what we've seen over the years. You know, but then it allowed all forms of elements and characters to dominate our political space.
They made it dirty.
Moremi,
Well, I think we need to simplify it to the audience. Because I've been in mainstream politics now since 2018, late 2018. I decided to delve into politics, and I felt like, okay, I think it's high time I actually joined the political party, and I went into APC. And when you say politics is dirty, it's a relative term, highly relative. Unfortunately, we have leaders who have a particular mindset. This is how we do the things. This is how we have to do it. And unfortunately, one of the things that has always been an issue for young people to maneuver around with is loyalty. Do you understand? So you can't do something without having to identify with a particular leader. You can't have to run for a political office without having to do just some set values and systems.
So
However,
it's not really dirty.
it's not it's diplomatic. I'll use the word. You have to be very highly diplomatic.
There are a lot of words, dirty politics, murky waters of politics.
Because I would just say it's dirty.
Actually, I'll take myself as an example. Where is the Nigerian political scape going to? Where are we today? What have we witnessed? Can we learn some things from the military era and compare them to what we have today? Because what we have witnessed is that we are picking people that have not even run a kiosk, an Indomie kiosk, to sit in the seat of governance. And, there is also no electoral discipline where people are compelled to choose the best over the worst. We keep buying keke napepes and expecting them to function like a Mercedes until we're able to say, okay, let's look at people with competence, leadership that has a reputation for integrity. Look, we have never been this divided as a country.
Never.
Where can we find someone that knows and understands that the Igbo man's problem, the Igbo man that thinks the Yoruba man is his problem, or Hausa man that thinks the Igbo man is his problem, and the Niger Delta people that thinks that everybody is drinking their oil. So there is a need today, urgently, for us to look into those elements that have some kind of internal division and convert those people into internal cohesion. If you give a Nigerian an opportunity to become the best, he would become the best.
But Susie, I'll describe you as a Mercedes now, not a keke, and we're looking to put you on the map. This is generally or typically what happens in politics. You do not have enough capital to run like the old guys who have been in the system, have acquired in enormous wealth. However they acquired it, and can go to battle with that kind of money. To run even a primaries for House of Assembly will cost you nothing less than 15 to 20 million naira. By the time you've done all your State House, by the time you've done all your consultations, that is just the primaries, not the main election.
But I mean, so it brings, because someone like Amzat Lawal now, who is into following the money and tracking money. So the question is that, is our democracy, as it skewed the young person out of the scheme of things, does our politics allow the young people to thrive? If you don't have money, can you participate?
No, you can't.
Bam. I said it.
Even with the not too young to run law, first, it's constitutional that we got it wrong. So it's not just even about not having money. It's about the fact that the Constitution itself does not guarantee equity and justice and lack of consequences. Our fear, so Honorable Tony, my friend Anthony wants us to go into politics. But the Nigerian politics is always politics. It does not translate from politics to public policy and does not deliver the dividends of democracy.
To the people.
So our fear is we don't want to get caught in that line of politics without transiting into public policy. So if you say we should go into politics...
He's asking a question. Who is going to change it?
Who's going to change it?
We will change it.
But you're sitting on the first incident.
Sean, let me come in. I remember when Sean Igbide, the popular guy, I think he's a finance IT expert, and he got the appointment with the Minister of Finance as an SSA or something, and everybody was criticized. Why do you have to take this appointment? And that's the question. How do you change it when you don't get involved? If you don't get into that process, that system, you can't change it. Your personality, your work, your everything, your delivery, your work delivery there's just some way to transform it. It's going to transform that environment. So it's high time people like you stop staying behind and just say, oh, no, it's the same thing. Just get involved.
So the question I raised earlier, if the system is skewed against young people, can the young person really thrive? You have been in the APC, Anthony is in the PDP, but you have also run for offices and you've been in the National Assembly, but is the space conducive for a young person?
I will take it from this angle. You see, when you go to any financial institution for a facility, they ask you to go and bring
Collateral.
not just the collateral. They want to see your collateral is the list of what they ask you for. They want to see your precedents. They want to know if you understand the business very well. They want to see your history, your record. They want to see everything concerning this business you want to do before they advance you money. The collateral is the lowest of all the things they ask. What we've been doing in Nigeria, just as it concerns power, is giving power to people that hasn't been tested, that has no precedence, that has nothing to prove that they had achieved this or that on their own before they got into power. Now, where we are getting it wrong and continually get it wrong is the mindset that a Suji that has done so well changing the architectural landscape of Lagos State cannot go to Shu State, where he's from, to run for governorship. You ask him, we had that conversation, and Suji says, our country is in not too good shape. Yes, we all agree. The incumbent president will do the much you would do, exit. It takes the next person to come in and continue from where he stopped. Now, if his likes that already has track record refuses, if the likes of, I enjoy listening to Bishop Kuka, that seems to understand the whole problem we have in this country. When he speaks, I listen to him ardently. And I ask myself, unless there is any place in the canon law that forbids him from running for a post, either in the Senate or because we already see what he represents and what he stands for. You have those guys in the banking sector, the likes of Herbert Wigwe and the rest of them. Nothing stops them from going to run. We had a P2B that ran for governorship in Anambra State, and he did very well because he had track record. Even if we don't get it, let's show that we want a change in the society. He's run for presidency, or he was someone's vice, you know? And that is what we're saying. If you look at, if you've been a leader in your own space, come out. Because at the moment, Nigeria is in their need of your expertise.
Sorry, Kate wanted to say, because when I said that, if the system skewed
it's
against...
skewed. Where is the person going to get the money from? Where is this young person?
It's money and more.
I'm sorry. I'm speaking from personal experience. You need money because the form is the form free. Is a form free. You are going to join the party, it's okay, and you put yourself up for a position. Is the form free?
Let's hear your experience. What was it like? How difficult was it for you? I mean, because a lot of young people want to learn.
I tell them that you need money, and that's the God-honest truth.
That's the first thing that discourages people that want to run, because when you present
money. Because all the people I went to consult, the first thing they asked me is, what is in your war chest? I never understood what they meant by that. What is war chest? Am I fighting a war? I'm putting myself up to help, to serve. You're telling me what's in my war chest. I thought I needed weapons. I found out that it was money. I would go to speak to different groups, and the language is, you have not landed.
Yes.
I don't know what they mean by land. This is my personal experience.
I think we can't continue saying money is a problem when we are in a new age and era. People have had very complex protests within the last 1 year and have been able to fund this protest and raise money. Our generation as it is today, I can tell you are ready to back people who are ready to run. And I've said this to you, I know a lot of people who are not happy. I was talking to Suji and I said, look, you're in the private sector. One day somebody is going to bring out a policy that will affect you negatively. And that's because you haven't even invested in young politicians. So I see a paradigm shift. I see where people are beginning to take their future more serious, especially those who have the money. But they have not seen willing people to invest that money in. There are people who are ready to sponsor people like Kate. And I'm sure if Kate comes out today to say, I want to run, but I'm not going to run based solely on my resources. But I want to say this as well. There's no country in the world, anybody running for office does not generate money first. In the American elections, it's even far more expensive than running in Nigeria. But
money is important.
So money established. Money is important. So let's get one more experience from Tony, who also had run for office.
You see, for me, I think the first thing you should ask yourself is, do you have social capital?
What is social capital?
Social capital is that you build within the society, within the community that you intend to represent. Do they believe you? Have you been able to impact in some lives positively, not necessarily financial? Because I recall one of the speakers of one of the northern states used to be a wheelbarrow pusher.
Yes.
He used to be a wheelbarrow pusher. And many people supported him because he goes to fetch water for them. What are you known for?
Yes. In your immediate environment.
What is your social relevance?
In the place where you want to serve.
Where I would always want to counter when people say money. We've seen politicians come out with a lot of money and still get rejected by their people. And people are becoming more aware.
Yes.
It has happened. It's happened in Imo State, where I am from. It has happened in some states. Some governors have lost elections, sitting governors have had to lose election after spending so much, and they were defeated.
Are young people thriving? Yes, young people are thriving in every sector except politics. Why is that so? We might debate this till tomorrow, but money is important. And I'll give a context here. To run for state assembly, you need about 70 million naira. To be a federal lawmaker, that's House of Rep, you need about 200 million. To be a senator,
what state are you looking
you need about 5 billion on an average. To be a governor, you need to spend about 10 to 15 billion. To be the president, you must spend at least 20 to 30 billion naira. So what are we saying here? You must spend a lot of money, and this is the research Follow the Money have done.
Thank you, Hamza. Gentlemen and ladies, we need to take a break, but when we come back, there is a critical question that my panel here are going to be discussing, and it is, what sort of leaders does Nigeria need? That's a big question, isn't it? We'll take that question when we come back from this break, everyone. Join us again. Welcome back, everyone. The young people's conversation continues. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on this Independence Day celebration. So let's get back to the conversation, because when Hamza was, he follows the money. When he started reeling out the figures on the monies that you need, it does look like some of the experienced politicians here in the room, they do not agree with that. What was your grievance about the money? Is it not true that you need money? Because I think we all agree on this platform that money is important, isn't it?
I agree totally.
Thank you, sir.
Money is important. But what I do not agree is with the figures that Hamza was reeling out. Because, everyone, I want to let the viewers not get discouraged by those amounts he's mentioned.
Are they lies?
They don't necessarily, they are not, not necessarily lies, but they're also not substantiated. And also, mind you, when you mention this amount of money that you're mentioning, every politics is local. Every politics is local. What works in your place may not work in my place, in my area. In your area, it might just be about money and spending. In my area, it might just be about social capital. That's what they look at. And also, do not forget the fact that, yes, friends and families do contribute. And the political party that you eventually become their flag bearer does also support you financially when you become a flag bearer.
After the fact.
Well, Honorable, so let's break it down quickly, because before we move into, because if you don't agree, so there are a few checklists for you to be able to tick before you can get into office. You need to buy form. And also the candidate form.
Almost always waived for women.
For women, that's for women.
And for the young people also.
But has it been waived for young people?
Yes, for the young people, they've reduced the price. Both APC and PDP reduced the price. And let's also not forget that we have some young people parties. There are some parties that go with young people's name. What are they also doing to capture a whole lot of young people, that demography, to come and run under them?
I would like to bring our minds back to this conversation, because we have young people watching us and they're expecting to learn a lot of things from us. Now, the question is, it's not just enough for you to get into that public space of running. There are a lot of things you can do behind the scene. Sean, since I delved into politics, I know what I've impacted in APC. I'm not ready to start saying these are the things I've done, but technically, I've added value, real values. Now, what does it take to be in mainstream politics? Because you want to do it to make an impact. You want to see the system change. You want to bring a system change to your environment or something. Now, it takes character. That's the first thing. young people are not ready to be submissive, to have real value system, to be humble. Number one is character. Number two, unfortunately, it's something you cannot take aside, is loyalty. And it's simple. It's knowing how to respect, knowing how to carry your leader along, knowing how to say, okay, this is what I have to do. Oh, ma'am, I'm going for this. And that's one thing that I've benefited from. I have leaders I look up to. I have a leader that has brought me this far.
So young people need to learn that there's a ladder.
System. There's a ladder. You need to.
It's like you're in secondary school. You have to graduate from JSS1 to JSS2. So for example, can Sujimoto, for example, can Sujimoto go from here and say he wants to run for governor?
Now that's the thing. If Sujimoto would need to identify with a leader, you need to identify. You just have to learn. It's unfortunate. That's the terrain we find ourselves.
Who is this leader? Wait. Which leader? You know, what are the values of this your leader that you identify with?
Let me hear from Kate.
What are the values of this your leader that you want to identify with?
Exactly.
Because if Suji's values are better than his leaders, I see no reason why he should align with this leader.
What I'm saying now is, it's not just enough. Nobody's perfect. There's always some level of good in every human being. And for you to have attained a position, it's been some value system that's taking you to where you have gone to.
Or none.
Now,
Can I help a little bit? You see, I think where we're getting the whole thing wrong is the fact that she mentioned that you mustn't delve into the mainstream. You could be in the mainstream, but not
necessarily wanting to run.
Yeah, of course.
That does not mean, with your question, that does not mean that Suji does not qualify to run for Osun State governor. In fact, as a matter of fact, I actually would want him to, because if you have a proven track record, like I was saying earlier, if what you've been doing, nothing stops both the GMDs you have in the bank today, those economists, those people that have studied everything, that understand our economy, that believes that they can fix it. I keep saying it. Nothing stops them from coming out to go. Otedola is there. Otedola, I read the story where when his company went down and how he was able to raise it up again.
Yes.
So there is.
You and I both know that
so I
experience
think,
will get
just
to
a moment. I think there is a fundamental question here that a lot of people who are watching need to understand that no matter what you're doing, you can still be a member of a political party.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If you can be a member of a political party and walk the ladder.
Yeah.
But because we're going to another very important part of this conversation, the kind of leaders that we need. Do we have those kind of leaders? It's very crucial for us to get.
So that was the question that Kate was asking. She was asking who was the leader that she would go with and
model,
and not even necessarily just loyal to, that would mentor her within the political party. But you see, in doing this, you yourself have to pay your dues to the party. People don't want to take their time to go through the runs, understand even what the party is about. They just sometimes come in, and if they're not given the ticket, they feel disappointed and forget that they have been. For instance, there have been people on that queue. They may not even have as much money as you have. So people may have been on that queue. They have been contesting several times. They haven't been given that opportunity, and the party suddenly decides that, look, this time around, no matter who comes, we're going to give the ticket to this person, and we'll all support him. You come at that point.
Tony, so because the question I was going to ask, and I want our viewers to know that electorates have only one bowl to pick from during an election.
Absolutely.
So we are all, as voters, condemned to pick from whatever the political parties give. So what sort of leaders do we need in Nigeria? Economic problems that we're facing, the security issues that we're facing, education, health, a lot of issues that we're facing. Let me begin with you, Suji.
You see, without identifying the problem, we might not have the solution. The number one primary solution for this nation is leadership. And when electing a leader, what are the things we're looking for? First thing you must look at is competence. The second thing you must look at is integrity. Can you enthrone impunity to your wife or your cousin when it goes wrong? Are you able to do that? Are you able to look at yourself and enthrone that level of integrity to ask yourself first, what can you do? I don't even understand what I'm saying. Then after that, then you start looking at other things. What is your love for the nation? M.K. Abiola defeated Tafa right opposite his house, because of social capital.
Does anyone disagree with him?
No, I agree. I would say character, capacity, competence, and empathy.
And consistency.
See, you must have a heart for people.
Yes.
It's not going to be about you anymore. It's about making your people better, because in them being better, you look better.
Absolutely.
That I would put it just simply that way.
Being in public office is service, anyway. That's supposed to be the spine.
Sean said something that we have a bowl and we have to select. So imagine we have candidates of questionable characters, maybe in terms of their degree, what they have they done, or health status, thereabouts. How do you manage those people?
Because I'm looking not on the fact that today is Independence Day, and it's very important for us to know that the issue of our democracy now comes to bear. But the fact that we have an election in 2023, so the big question now is, when we have a bowl to pick from, assuring ourselves that we have competent, quality people in that bowl that people have to pick. So the question is that where do we go? That's where do we go from here?
That's why we keep telling people to join the major political parties.
Because it takes delegates. A lot more people need to.
The delegates are the ones who
choose.
The delegates choose.
You and I do not get into the system. How are we going to choose?
The people only get to pick vote at the very end. The person has already been picked.
You don't have to choose.
The worst thing that would happen to someone is not tell themselves the truth first. Yes, in Nigeria, sadly, we have a two-party system.
That's
but, Sheon, the turning point could be that let's even have 90% of voter turnout.
Well said.
In 2023.
Well said.
That could be the game changer, both for old and young people. If we can get 90% turnout, then probably people will start understanding that power and legitimacy belongs to the people.
Maybe when people can vote on Twitter.
I agree.
Because young people stay on Twitter, and that's where they always are on election day. Anthony, you and your friends, and people
but
stay
the
on
thing is, they also say that because they don't like
it's already
candidates that are
by 2023. So people need to understand this. The selection process for political party starts at the ward election. If you're not a member of a political party, how can you present yourself?
How can you have a pick of a good candidate?
But so we'll come there one minute. Because, sorry, Honorable, the question when you ask people, go and get your PVC. I think the next advocacy is when you get your PVC, join a political party. Because if you don't, then you are really not part of the game. Because you need to, I don't know if I'm speaking your minds. Because it's not enough to have a PVC for you to vote.
I agree with you.
Determining in the political party, having a say. Because the political party will determine who becomes the candidate.
Well, there's something we're skipping here. Sheung, you asked what type of leadership, right?
Does Nigeria need?
Does Nigeria need at the moment? We are at a stage in our country that we need people, fixers, to come and help us fix things. And these people are all over. They're everywhere. You
where
see
are
them.
the people? They can't, because
now let me tell you. So
the question is that
where are the kind of people?
Will say we have people who can take Nigeria. So the question is that who are those people?
Fantastic.
Where are they?
I'm going to answer.
One of them. Do we?
Wait. We started just for us to know that we have these people. In Anambra State.
We are fixing it.
Wait, sorry. In Anambra State. I had already mentioned Peter B and Ngige when they started. You go to Akwa Ibom, you see what the governor is doing there too. He's fixing Akwa Ibom very well, from what I have seen that he's doing. And many other governors are doing well. Sheyi Makinde is doing well.
Or your state.
You know, Fashola did a lot here.
He did in Lagos.
In Lagos. You know, and these are people with track record. And you still have them.
Donald Duke.
You still have Donald Duke until we are able to tell ourselves, look, we can no longer sit in the cozy environment of our office and expect things to go well. You complain politicians are killing the economy, and you have the antidote. You have the whole thing to correct the system. Why don't you join? I want to use this opportunity. We have them. You're a medical doctor. You touch him. No, I'm not a politician. But I'm a renowned surgeon. I'm not a politician. You're a renowned surgeon. And in the next coming weeks, another government comes in, they strike. continues in the medical sector, you complain. What stops you from joining the process?
All right.
We are in a critical situation, and critical situation requires all hands on deck. You're in the civil. Sorry, let me conclude. You said you're an activist. There is no activism where you don't have genuine and true democracy. They will gag you.
Let's bring it up now. We're going to wrap up, and this is our final lap. Can the young people step up? Can them on the day of election not just tweet alone, but really participate? That's a big question, and that's where we wrap up. The solution to these problems that we have highlighted, will the young people step up? Do they have the space? Will they be given the opportunity to step up?
Okay, opportunity is not given. Politics is not, you see, power is not given, it's taken. And you must have to leave the comfort of your bedroom to go and get involved. You must be very intentional. You must be ready and tell yourself, look, I am ready to be a part of the change makers in the society. Until we get to that point where it is very fashionable, very okay to have your voter's card. For me to look at you and without a voter's card, I see you as a problem in the society. Until we get to that point where
that for me,
if you do not
everybody
have a
needs
voter's
to
card,
get to that point.
if you don't have a voter's card, you are one of the biggest challenges. You're the reason why the hospitals are not well equipped. You're the reason why the roads are not fixed. Until we begin to demonize people without it, those are one. The second people, excuse my word, those that believe that on election day you have to be given money to vote.
Well said.
And when you're giving money, you open your mouth and tell anybody around you that this politician is not doing well, thunder will fire you. For collecting that money and collecting that money, which is wrong.
All right. So where do we go from here? That's a big question. Can the young people be trusted to step up? Will they be able to step up? These are big questions.
Young people are doing very well in every sector.
Except politics.
We have
I knew this was
doing well in politics.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
We need to consolidate as young people. Ahead of 2023, the only thing power listen to is power. I think as young people, we need to come together. I say this, and I said this before 2019. I said it was late for us to have a young president because we started late. Now, it's a bit late because we were supposed to start immediately after 2019 election. But we can negotiate power, and that's where diplomacy comes in. If young people can consolidate and come together and make our demands clear, and then have conversation with these politicians. Yes, I'm a civic leader, but I spend most of my time engaging politicians to do advocacy. So I think as young people...
But is it possible that we have a young, maybe within the age of 30 and say 55 as Nigeria's next president? Is that possible?
The world is led by ideas. Right now, what we need in Nigeria are solution-driven ideas. And young people have the solutions. So again, it's for us to start talking to our peers in the political parties and support them and ask them, how can we penetrate while we bring power from outside and talk to power from inside? Then we look at what are they offering us as young people? And then if we get them to listen to us, we take our power and give them this power that brings legitimacy, and then we fix Nigeria.
Is it possible, truly? Is it possible to have a young person to become Nigeria's president in that bracket?
One thing I'd like to say, for 2023...
For 2023?
No.
It's too late.
I'm sorry. It's late. One thing we have to get in our minds is that it's not a sprint, like you said. It's a marathon. And for Nigeria, it is indeed a marathon. We need to have... You know how they say you have your foot in the mud, is in the cement, and it needs to solidify. So 2023 for a young president, I don't see it. It's not impossible, but I don't see it.
It's also possible if you look at what he has just said, and if Suji would ensure that everybody that comes near him has a voter's card. If Kate and all of her colleagues on social media and everywhere would make it fashionable to have your voter's card. If the bloggers, the big names that you have in the blog, should make it that every of their followers, those that do giveaway, before you give away, can I see your PVC? If we are able, the church leaders, the church, especially the
Traditional
churches,
rulers.
if the churches make it mandatory that every member should have
But
your
I
PVC.
think the answer to Sheon has asked the question, and can we have young people step up? I definitely think that we don't not just have, they are already there. They are ready to step up. The best time to get into politics was yesterday. The next best time is today. The next best time is today. And the challenge, the onus is on us. The future belongs to us. These guys have kept telling us that we are the leaders of tomorrow. And even tomorrow, they are still going to remain
Tomorrow
as
never
leaders.
comes.
No, even tomorrow, they're still going to want to remain as leaders. That's fine if they're going to deliver a good country. But as we've seen, this country has not been delivered to us in a state that we can. Most of our contemporaries have left the country.
They have. I had someone leave yesterday.
They've left the country. So we have nowhere else to go. Some of us do not have another country that we can run to.
Except here.
So we're either going to fix this country or burn with it. That's the two options we have. So we have no other option than to fix it. And this is why we're calling on everybody that is able. First of all, like Honorable has said, get your PVC, participate. Look for a political party. It doesn't matter what they say.
You mustn't be a member of a political party.
Yeah, true.
Every young person should go get your
PVC.
And use it.
Use your PVC, study the candidates, vote, and ensure that your vote gets counted.
Even contribute. When you see there's funding for a young candidate, even if it is 1,000 naira, it will go a long way. Support that young candidate.
Our leaders are helpless without us. And that's the truth.
Say that again.
Our leaders are helpless without the young people. They need us, and it's high time you get involved. You cannot effect the change from outside. You have to effect the change from inside. Many of our leaders cannot even do anything without calling on a younger person. You can't say, oh, how do you do it? How do we manipulate this? How do we maneuver this? Do you understand?
So
they
the
don't
young
even
people are the leverage.
They are the leverage. They need us. They are helpless. They can't do it.
But they are not usually
They're even confused because they are changing times. They don't even know how to. Some of them are helpless.
So, but why don't you ask for help? I mean,
they can't because of the people around them. If people like you and I do not get around them, they can't even have that change. We can't see that creative change. They're doing by talks.
By people who know.
So you can't think of that creative change. It can't be creative because of the people around them. Their aides are not even creative enough.
Do you know that someone shared a screenshot of votings on one of the Big Brother thing, and I found out that the number of votes on that particular comment was higher than what you need in most constituencies to win election.
So you
and there are no ballot buses. Neither are there polling stations on the social media.
No, there are.
So you put that plow that energy into leadership. So because we need to wrap up now. Suji.
Yes. For me, I think that leadership and positions has no boundary and has no age, has no gender. I have learned in the past that meritocracy is the only foundation that will lead any institution forward. We must start borrowing from the model of the likes of Lee Kuan Yew, the man that instituted meritocracy, and appoint leaders that knows that that position you're in is not a chieftaincy. That people that know that immediately you are not able to demonstrate competence, impunity will come and meet you at home, and you must give judgment for every wrong decision you've made. So when we talk about leadership and when we talk about position of leadership in general, not only governor or House of Assembly or House of Representatives, I always get back and say, can we put someone there that merits it? The first yardstick in the election of leadership must be competence.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Hamza, your final thought.
This is all our leaders have to offer. We've seen everything since after independence. I think the time is now. The future is today. And for young people listening out there, let's take this future and use it for the better good of Nigeria. I believe that young people have all the answers to all the conversations. We have the answers. What is left for us is let's take over these political parties. Shall we?
Well, I think it's a good place for us to drop it.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. Suji Bobby Ogundele is the CEO of Suji Motor, a private real estate company in Nigeria. Hamzat Lawa is a civil society person, founder of Follow the Money. Honorable Tony Nwulu is the sponsor of the Not Too Young to Run bill. Kate Henshaw is a prominent Nigerian actor. And Moremi Ojudu, a member of the APC and an activist. Anthony Ahilebo, a lawyer and a member of the PDP. Gentlemen and ladies, happy Independence Day again. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Seun.
And that is our show, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Seun Akimale. Have a wonderful evening.
Continuing coverage on Nigeria's 61st independence anniversary. What a conversation that we had just before that break with the young people there, as well as our political correspondent, Seun Okimbaloye. We looked at them talking about politics, about participation, and interesting there that they ended on the note that the young people should take over the political parties. I'll hand that last thought over to our panel, which we had before we went on the break. The senior pastor, Trinity House, Pastor Itoa Igodalo, here with us in Lagos. We also have had earlier on in the day the Pro-Chancellor, Federal University, Lafia, Professor Munzali Jibrin, in our Kano studio. And also in Abuja, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Ernest Ojukwu. So, Prof, I'm going to come to you directly now for your reactions to that very vibrant conversation Seun had with the young people who are into politics at the moment. Prof.
Okay, good.
In Abuja, I said, yes. Professor Ojukwu, yes.
Okay, good. I was wondering. Yeah, sure. It was very, very exciting conversation they had on the youth empowerment in leadership in Nigeria. But the first thing I would say is that the young people in Nigeria are victims of our convoluted culture of corruption. And so whatever we aspire for them cannot materialize until we also address that our position, which we have used to infiltrate their ranks and dethrone them very effectively from aspiring to leadership. They expressed the fears about participation, which involves a lot of money. And I heard some of the participants say that money is involved, but it's not a major problem. Now, surely, if money is not a major problem, if money, the money that is an issue is not just the money to campaign. If that was the problem, youths will still get the money to campaign because people invest in them, like one of the members said, if they have social values. Now, but the problem is that the money that is an issue is the money of corruption, the money to rig the election, the money to hijack the ballot papers, the money to use talks on election day, the money to thwart the honest choices of people at primary elections. There's no party that runs a democratic, honest primary. So the young people are very, 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 very victimized in all senses. And so I applaud those of them that have the courage to step into that tide. But it is going to be very difficult for them.
Okay, Professor Jibrin, let me have your response as well. You see one of the participants there saying that she tried to come and help and she was asked, what's in your war chest? You haven't yet landed. You know, with talk like that, how is that encouraging? And what did you feel when you heard her say that?
Yeah, well, it is true that our type of democracy requires a lot of money. If people want to contest for office and they have fresh ideas, if they are not backed by a godfather or some money back that will bankroll their campaign, they are not likely to succeed. Because the two major parties have become so entrenched that they are operating like closed shops. You can't get in except if you are introduced by a ranking member. And if they also know that you have radical ideas, then you are not likely to be welcomed. If you go to the smaller parties, of course, the voters don't normally want to waste their votes, so they don't look at those parties. So I think the lady who was talking about having a war chest or not having landed, I think these are quite reflective of what happens in our society regarding democracy. So we need radical reforms to make sure that there is independent candidature, for example, and also that we minimize the role of money, especially the money that political parties charge to accept candidates for the primaries. Also here, the influence of the governors has to be curtailed because a lot of the governors simply give instructions to the delegates for the primaries to say it's candidate A or candidate B, and everybody votes that way. We can't have, I mean, this is democracy without Democrats. So I think we need to do a lot of reforms in order to make it a real democracy.
Pastor Godalo, minimize money. Can we do that, really? There was an attempt to do that in the last election by INEC, and we don't quite know how that ended in terms of putting a cap on spending really quickly now. It did come up in Sheon's conversation with the youth there, how important money seems to be in our politics.
In any political dispensation, money is important. In fairness, even if you have a normal campaign, to go from street to street costs you money, to print papers costs you money, to convince people to vote for you will cost you one kind of money or the other. What we're trying to eradicate is the high level of spending fueled by corruption that encourages corrupt practices is where the real challenge is. But I'll go back again to the foundation. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. When you have no information, you don't know who you are, you don't know what your rights are, you don't know what to do. Small money can make you do crazy things. Small money can make you do crazy things. If everybody had a certain level of understanding, nobody can come and teach you nonsense and tell you rubbish. You will put them in their place and tell the man that you are talking absolute rubbish. But when a man brings a bag of money, you've been hungry all day, you are not exposed, you don't know what to do, you better accept his money, do what he asks you to do, and go your way. This is exactly what's happening in Nigeria today. And the issue now is, what can the individual or the average person in Nigeria do? Because a lot of time we talk a lot of theory. They should do this, they should do this, they should do that. They will not do it because they know what to do, but they will not do it. It's not in their interest to do it. Why would they do it? When, as the status quo is, they're making all the money. So we, as the ordinary citizen, you, myself, and we must do something. We must begin to talk. Each one of us must begin to talk. Each one of us must find somebody down the line to educate and to inform and to tell them that they have rights and to tell them to stop being afraid and to tell them that these people are not magicians. They're ordinary people like you and myself. We must begin to talk.
We've completely run out of time. I want to thank you very much. In fact, I want to thank all our guests on this segment, starting, of course, from you, Pastor Ichua Godalo in our Lagos studios. Thank you for your time. Very well spent this evening. From our Abuja studios, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Ernest Ojukwu, thank you so much for joining us. And from our Kano studios, Professor Monzalim Jibril, thank you very much for your time, for joining us on this segment today. Now, it's not only Nigerians or Nigerians who are here in Nigeria who are concerned about Nigeria at independence, where it is today, 61 years later. Nigerians who live outside the country are equally concerned. And Ijoma spoke to some of them about their aspirations, what they feel about the country, even as it turns 61.
It's now 61 years since Nigeria gained independence from Britain with the lowering of the Union Jack on October the 1st, 1960. While Nigeria's endowment with natural resources is not in doubt, perhaps the greatest endowment is its collection of exceptionally gifted individuals, many of whom are flying the flag on the world stage. While these are some of the faces of the diaspora, there are at least 17 million more who have left the shores of the country and are resident in almost all the continents of the world. 61 years on, diasporans reflect on the state of the country. For this British Nigerian serving MP, the sheer cost of participation in the political process is still far too high.
One big barrier is that how much it can cost to run politically in Nigeria, and that limits who can stand. You know, and if politicians aren't representative of their communities, then representing their issues is much harder. And myself, as a Labour Party candidate, I had to spend very little money of my own money. I think I spent about £300 of my own money to get elected.
In terms of the economy, the strength of Nigerians abroad is evident in the high volume of remittance flows into the country in the last 10 years. In 2019 alone, remittances amounted to $25 billion. With keen eyes on inflows, the federal government began more concerted efforts to identify Nigerians in diaspora through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, its missions, and more recently through the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. But in spite of best-laid plans, dwindling investments are real, going by the drop in remittance flow figures by Nigerians, particularly in the last 2 years. So what happened?
Maybe we still need to do more about encouraging formal remittances. Maybe the informal ones are even more now. Maybe.
What's the difference?
But here's the thing. No, you see, the informal, you don't record it. You're not going to know. So I'm in England now. I'm going home. You give me $2,000, give my auntie. It's not recorded. But you see, the taxes on remittances still needs to go down.
While the figures show the wealth of a great number of Nigerians abroad, some do not excel and others experience poor treatment. This incident involving the manhandling of a Nigerian diplomat in Indonesia is one in the list of increasing cases of harassment of Nigerians abroad. Ironically, this does not stop many who are still in search of greener pastures, and here's the evidence to back this up. A 2019 IOM report lists Nigeria as one of 5 priority countries in Africa where the EU is ramping up efforts to reduce the flow of migrants and asylum seekers. Mary Stretch has helped to support many of them who have become stranded in places like Libya and Calais in France.
These people who've been traumatized, who are distressed, who are lonely, who are looked down upon because they have no clothes, many people have a very poor opinion of them.
In the health sector, this award-winning urological surgeon at the Royal London Hospital is sceptical about progress in face of the news of persistent strike actions from his colleagues back home over welfare.
It saddens me that the doctors don't feel valued enough and they're not remunerated well enough. And so many of them seek their opportunities abroad.
I asked him if he would ever come back home finally. Here's what he said.
Well, that's a good question. So, what is home to me? What is home to me? I can see myself. I can see myself doing that.
The country has made a lot of progress in the last 61 years. There have been peaks and there have been troughs as well. But the view from this side of the divide, the view from the voices in the diaspora is that if we are to leverage on the investment power of Nigerians in the diaspora, then there must be critical conversations that cut across all strata of diasporans. In London, Ijoma Onyato, Channels Television News.
All right, Ijoma Yato there in London, but back now, 7 days post-quarantine in Lagos. Ijoma, welcome back, I must say.
Thanks a lot, Laddie.
But I wanted to find out, beyond what you reported, that what was your general feeling about the Nigerians that you spoke to there? What did they think of home?
Yeah, well, there are two categories. Now, there's some who are doing extremely well, like the ones that I showed earlier on, and they're doing well, they're working good jobs, high-flying jobs, I might add, some even on the international stage as well. Then there's the other category of diasporans that are not doing as well as they could, have gotten into the country just struggling and managing to survive. Now, for that particular category, the stories back home, they say, this is the reason I left in the first place. And it's difficult for me to want to come back because the problems that made me leave still exist. Whereas for the other strata of diasporans, they're looking to remit money home, they're happy, good jobs, and they're the ones trying to give us advice on how the country should be run at the moment.
All right, then, welcome back. It's been, of course, it's been a good experience. We're now being joined by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige. Dr. Ngige joins us, I believe, virtually. And also joining us virtually is Dr. Ife Nwakwese, who is a life development coach. I hope I got that right. Welcome to the program, and thank you for your patience. Let me start with you, Dr. Nwakwese. You listened to the youth, you listened to the earlier discussion. We talked about the pipeline, what's blocking it, and now we're trying to look at how to get the blockage out of the way. From everything you've heard, do you think that that is possible, and if so, how? It would appear as if your mic is muted.
Sorry, let me just unmute it.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me very well now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for this question. Being an integrative healthcare practitioner and a personal development specialist, I usually deal with societal challenges from the roots. What I think that can get the Nigerian politics and change the political landscape is to make sure we include growth mindset and personal development training right from our primary, secondary, university education. In this country, we are too focused on formal degrees. But what is more important for us to develop leaders in this country?
We can still hear you. Please go on. Please go on.
Okay. What is most needed to develop leaders in this country is to include in the curriculum growth mindset and personal development. The reason is that leaders have to be prepared to be leaders. You can't just come out and say you are a leader and you have not learned leadership skills. Any problem?
No, please go on. We can hear you. We can hear you. We're following you.
You cannot just wake up and say you are a leader and you have not prepared for leadership. I am a medical doctor. I went to medical school. And learned the skills of being a medical doctor. Our lawyers learn how to be barristers. So if we are going to get Nigeria right, we need to include growth mindset and personal development training. And in fact, anyone that is coming out to be a leader would have done at least a year of that sort of program with a certificate so that you can at least have the attributes of being a self-actualized and a self-transcendent individual. Leaders have certain qualities. Leaders are constantly and continuously improving the calibers of who they are. They realize that they are spirit, mind, body, and they have relationships and marriages. And so they are continuously working on all those areas so they can be more balanced. They can live with an inner peace, inner contentment, inner harmony, empathy, love, and affection. So when they get to the leadership, They're not going to be concerned about money they're going to be putting in their pockets. They're going to be concerned about how they can impact society, how they can change the hunger in the land and make more impact. Now, a leader is supposed to be humble. Humility demands that.
Dr. Wakwese, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I just want to reintroduce Dr. Chris Wabeza Ngige, the Minister of Labor and Employment, who joins us virtually, as I said earlier on. Dr. Ngige, are you there now?
I hope I'm there.
Yes, we can hear you. We can actually hear you. We can hear you. Thank you for your time. Let me, of course, let me quickly ask you, because it's lovely to have you join us, but let me ask you, everything we've talked about today has been on leadership. You are one of the leaders, the current leaders of the country. You're a minister, you've been a governor, and a senator as well. So, do you think that what has been said about leaders has been fair to those who have led?
Well, in the main, a lot of the things the young people are complaining about is true to a large extent. And I was happy I saw an honorable member also talking to them. He's also a young person. But there's one thing that is missing. That thing that is missing is that the young people do not believe that you can do what is called apprenticeship. In politics, you must do apprenticeship. No matter who you are, you need to be coached. Who incidentally did the NYSC the same time in Lagos, talking about the cost she's prescribing. Yes, that's a good thing. But many people would not like to go to that course. Many people would not be qualified to go to that course. Because when things are damaged from the foundation, you can't just go upstairs and say you are repairing. You're wasting your time. Nigerian Constitution prescribes that anybody who wants to contest anything should have attempted West African school certificate. O level, attempted, educated up to. That's what is in the Constitution. And they've interpreted it to be that you can come with the first school living certificate, which is under 6, and then attach some other experience, subsidiary certificates to standard 6, and it qualifies you. Or put a work experience, attach it to standard 6, and it qualifies you. To run for governor, to run for president, to run for House of Reps, Senate, councillor, local government chairman. You can't make progress with such a qualification that is in the Constitution. You can't. But it was being done to accommodate some people, or people from predominantly the area, that many people have not gotten school certificates, or even educated up to school certificates. So you find some of these people in the legislature. So how do they make laws? I was in the legislature. I know some legislators who never spoke for one day, now 4 years, in the Senate. And I know in the House of Reps, the number is times 10, or even up to 100. So there must be some going back. And I think we have to go to the Constitution and amend qualification for leadership, the academic qualification for leadership. Then from there you come, the next level becomes the training you are talking about, which some people can say experience gives them. Experience on jobs, maybe public service jobs, or even in the private sector. That experience, if they match it with a school certificate, then they can be good leaders. Then you also now go back to the days of yours, when we had the good leaders in this country. We had the good leaders in this country. We had Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. school teacher.
Dr. Ngige, my apologies for interrupting. We'll want to take a break, a very brief break, and then we'll come back. Please hold the thought. We'll come back after that break, and we will allow you to complete that. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Before that break, Dr. Chris Ngige, Minister of Labor and Employment, was making a point about the pipeline and apprenticeship that leaders, potential leaders, particularly the young, seem not prepared to want to undertake. Dr. Ngige, would you like to complete that train of thought?
Yes. Thank you again. I said the foundation is bad when the academic qualification for you to read and write is not what it's supposed to be. Elementary 6, going to parliament is of no use. Elementary 6, being governor, being a speaker, being a president, cannot offer you what the person doesn't have. So we need to amend that area of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and give it a minimum that you have school certificates. And even if you are going to have school certificate, they can define it that you must also have at least 3 credits. Then you also go back. I don't know those who remove the history.
It does appear as if Dr. Ngige is...
From the curriculum. The education curriculum full and secondary school. I wasn't there. We don't have to come back and restore history. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Council on Education, NCE, National Council on Education, which is a body made up of the Minister of Education and his ministry, and all commissioners of education in the country. They have to go back and restore for us history. That subject called history. It has to be taught in primary school. It has to also be taught in secondary school. Because people have lost their history. Some of the young men talking today about separatism and the rest of them all did not read about Nigeria's independence and how it was gotten. They did not also witness it. Some of us were lucky to witness it, and we went to do the marching in the stadium in Enugu for the Union Jack to be brought down and for the new government to take over in the East. We also witnessed the war. If you didn't witness the war, you are supposed to read about it. What led to the war? Some separatist agitations occurred. In 1953, some legislators, federal legislators from northern Nigeria, left Lagos and went back to Kaduna and reported to Ahmadu Bello and said, we are not going back to Lagos. We want to get out of Nigeria. It needed dialogue, persuasion, and the rest of them all to get them. Even on their way going back to Kaduna, they were stoned at Ofa, at the railway station there, because they went by rail. And when the delegation sent by Nnamdi Azikiwe came to Kaduna, they were referred to go and see those in Kano. When they got to Kano, they were also stoned and pursued. It happened. The leaders, they managed it well. Dialogue, discussions, and agreed then that Nigeria will not have independence in 1957. Give and take. So our independence came in 1960. Another agitation, 1966 coup. Some people labeled it Igbo coup and did what they labeled also a revenge coup. In the revenge coup, a lot of Southeasterners were killed. And even before then, some northern officers say, we are tired of Nigeria. We want to go back to the north, Araba. That was the sanction. Again, discussions were held. Government discussed, and everybody agreed. They went to Aburi, came back from Aburi, and the thing didn't hold because some portions of the Aburi agreement were not met. And then killings continued. Odumegwu Ojukwu, carrying the Eastern region, went on secession. And the Nigeria-Biafra war happened, the Civil War. Millions of lives were lost on both sides. So people must read them. The young people not born before 1965 did not know what transpired. So they must know. On both sides. On both sides. Because if you go to the so-called social media, I don't do it, but when they show me certain things there, you can see that the people are talking from a point of ignorance. And that is why the bitterness, the hatred is at its utmost degree. But when history is taught, and people even take exam in history, they will know some of these things. So for me, the young people have to exercise some patience. They have to also do what is called pupillage in politics.
Okay, Dr. Ngige, let me...
all my experience in the civil service, my degree and everything, I did pupillage with Dr. Alexei Kweme. I was in pupillage for about 3, 4, 5 years, carrying his bag to meetings. And we were even struggling for the bag. Me, Professor B.C. Wosu, and so many of us, Dr. Keude, everybody, we were struggling for Dr. Kweme's bag to get some knowledge, to be present at political meetings as people who are secretaries. Money is not everything. They talk about money, money, money. No. I joined resigning from the civil service. And when I didn't get the Senate nomination because they claim that I have not done enough pupillage, that I should serve more, when I came back to contest for secretary Assistant National Secretary of PDP, they really ran me and said, this man has the experience. He was a public servant and he retired meritoriously. And they supported me and I became an Assistant National Secretary.
Okay, Dr. Ngige, I appreciate that what you've said about training and apprenticeship and, you know, young people actually trying to learn from the older ones. But let me take you to another aspect of leadership that we would like to talk about today, and that is leadership versus the plight of the Nigerian worker and the average worker, which is something that we're privileged to have you here in the chair for you to talk to us about. Looking at the unemployment rate, it has quadrupled, at least in the last 5 years. And you find labor leaders over the last 61 years, the revered Pai Modu, going on strike to demand for better wages or just justice for the Nigerian worker. Could you say anything has really changed for the Nigerian worker? What should your leadership be doing to improve the lot of the Nigerian worker?
Well, my sister, I have to tell you the things as is. The leadership in Nigeria, especially the leadership we had since the advent of politics, they did not consider diversification of the economy as a major plank for the development of Nigeria. In fact, they were doing what we call consumption politics. You get money, you chop. You get money, you chop. No savings. No using of oil money, which is the mainstay of the economy, which is the main revenue base. No diversification, knowing that oil will finish one day or oil will become outdated. Hydrocarbon will get outdated as it is going now. Therefore, we have been caught napping. Our economy is very fragile. It didn't start with this government, but it started long ago. Long ago. Even from the military. It started from them. Now, everybody had hoped that when civilians come, they will do better. They will know more. But the civilians did not help matters. So there was no diversification. So what we have today is that we are panting for oxygen because we have not diversified, we have not encouraged agriculture, we have not encouraged manufacturing, we have not connected industrialization. A lot of industries have closed down. But it is not our fault. It's not the fault of Mr. Buhari. Mr. Buhari came even when the things have gone really bad and became what he was saying at $100 a barrel. 2.2 million barrels production per day. When he came, the thing died. Niger Delta crisis. He had to contend with it. Projection for oil, OPEC gives you a production quota of 2.2. At one point, we were producing 700,000 barrels. 1 million barrels. 1.3. Right now, we are around 1.6 or thereabout. We have not even finished our OPEC quota. Even with the condensate, we have not. Prices have pummeled. $27 a barrel, $30 a barrel, 50, 40 something. At one point during COVID, when COVID came, oil price was Nigerian oil sold at $10 a barrel, and we had no persons to buy. We are going to pay for storage. That's where we were. I'm a member of the Economic Sustainability Committee, and the day the CBN governor and the GMD and MPC and Minister of State Petroleum was laying this out, everybody was in tears because we have nothing to fall back on. So for me, the Nigerian workers have not fared too well because their economy is in very dire straits. But however, this government have tried to do 3 cardinal things I will tell you. Number one.
You have barely 1 minute. Dr. Ngige, you have 1 minute to round this up because...
President Muhammadu Buhari directed that there will be no retrenchment of any worker.
That's number
no
one.
Retrenchment.
That's number one.
Number two, salaries will be paid as and when due. And the federal government is doing that religiously. It's only the state government. So when you hear some people say federal government is owing us, no. They don't owe them salaries. They are owing them some end allowances, like the university teachers will tell you, ASU, or even the doctors will tell you. They are all end allowances. Some of those allowances were allowances contracted 2009. Agreements for them were done in 2009, not now. That's number two. Number three is that this government has pursued diversification aggressively, especially in the area of agriculture, because agriculture is the mainstay, is the low-hanging fruit. So the borders were closed. We produce what we eat, and we didn't import food anymore. Before we came, there was food importation. Potatoes from South Africa, you see them in the Sheraton Hotel, Hilton Hotel. When you go there, the potatoes are from South Africa. You will see tomato from South Africa. You will see apple from Geneva. You will see, so all those have gone, they are gone. This government stopped it. And we were then able to plug the leakages, especially in the area of foreign exchange. But you can only do some things that are possible in a very bad situation. You cannot do miracle. The only person doing miracle is gone, and that's Jesus Christ of Nazareth. You can't do miracle. All those claiming miracle now are just claiming miracle in the air and in paper. Only one person was doing miracle, and he has gone. So whatever we are doing today is that out of a very bad situation, we are trying to make it good. And for the Nigerian worker, we thank them for their patience. They have understood what the situation is. But the government have also tried to ameliorate the situation for the lowest paid worker by fixing a minimum wage, raising it from 18,000 to 30,000. But if the truth must be told, there's also inflation, there's also erosion of their currency. And this now looks like that 30,000 we did 2 years ago is no longer uhuru for the Nigerian workers. But I can tell the Nigerian workers we will continue to try our best, and I thank them at Independence that they understood what's going on. The labor leaders now are more literate and very, very well articulated in their thoughts, that we don't even need to teach them about the economy. They read the economy, they go on the internet, they go on Platt and know what is happening in the petroleum industry. So we thank everybody for the patience. We thank Nigerians too. They have shown patience, but we pray for the days to change and for goodies to come back to Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Ngige, thank you so much for that. So much to pack there into the last 61 years for the Nigerian worker. We continue to work on it, as you've said. Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, thank you so much for your time on the show tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Nigerians. Happy Independence Day celebration.
Thank you, and to you. Now let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be back shortly, and the conversation will continue as we wrap up on the thoughts on leadership on Nigeria at 61. Stay with us. Welcome back to the conversation. Now we're on our last legs, let's put it that way. We still have our personal and life development expert, Dr. Ife Nwakwesi, there with us. Dr. Ife, just give us your overall thought of the discussion and how this should take us as we move forward, 61 years on.
Ijoma, thank you very much for the opportunity. Ijoma, I'd like to keep things real. Nigeria is a failed nation. Our leadership is not doing well, and that's the truth. And that's because we've gone to the game without our first 11. In Nigeria, we have talented, creative, passionate, determined men and women, and even the youths, who can get this job done properly. I am thinking that it's time the older people give a chance to younger people with the knowledge, with the passion to change our country. We need men and women and youths that have adopted a growth mindset. And I am serious about that. Because if you just focus on formal education, people are not going to develop value systems. They're not going to develop common sense and wisdom knowledge. Some people have gone to the university, they came out in life and they didn't make a success of life. Some other people didn't even go to university and they come out and make a success of life. If you want to be a leader, you've got to prepare for leadership. You've got to develop an inner being of harmony, impact, happiness, creativity, and you need to be able to choose the decisions you make. You must look at the consequences of the decisions you make. When you take a decision, how is it affecting the larger populace? Is your decision going to change lives? Or is it going to impoverish people? If you decide to go abroad to go and take your medical care, what about millions of Nigerians that are dealing with failed healthcare in the system and they are dying untimely? Let me tell you something. I'm talking to the elites, I'm talking to the youths. I think that it's time we walk our talk. In this country, we are talking too much. Webinars, workshops, it is time for the elites to come together, put objectives in place, and then put their financial resources to work with the youth and the women to change the leadership.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Dr. Nwakwesi. That's a good point to end it. We've completely run out of time. When discussions are interesting, you tend not to be absolutely conscious of how time has flown. I want to thank you for your time on the program this evening.
But
thank you so much.
You didn't quite give me enough time to have my conversation.
My apologies for that. My apologies for that. My apologies. On TV, time flies. No problem. My apologies for that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Ijoma, you have a word?
Yeah, that's fine, Ladi. Thanks a lot as well. Happy Independence Day. Just to point out briefly, her saying Nigeria being a failed state, what then would she be suggesting? to get out or to stay?
There are many people who will contest that, but we do need to absolutely go. So, but we want to thank our viewers for this almost 3 hours that they've spent with us. Nigeria at 61, Thoughts on Leadership. And we hope that the conversations, frank as they've been, will enable you to take something away from it.
Thanks a lot. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Ladi Akere-Delale. Do have yourselves a pleasant evening.